The material that's being remediated and removed inside the hole is from the Garden Surging Waves construction project. At the time the Garden Surging Waves was constructed, we did not have permission from DEQ to move that material off the site, so it was stored there, just for anybody that didn't know that history. John Kuiper is with AMEC Foster Wheeler. I'm going to let him give his presentation with all the details, and if there's any questions along the way that are city-oriented, I'll step in and help answer questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Right again, John Kuiper, Principal Geologist with AMEC Foster Wheeler.
If you could pull the microphone closer.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So I think everyone here is pretty much familiar with the Heritage Square site. The first few slides are a little bit of refresher for those that might want a bit of refresher, and then some new slides to really bring everyone up to date as to where we are right now. So as Brett mentioned, it's a Brownfields multi-purpose grant. It was $400,000 total award, of which half was for assessment and half for cleanup. Most of the EPA grants only do one or the other, and so this was a rare type of grant, and the city was very fortunate to get it. Next. So a little bit of history on the environmental assessment work to date. It started back in 2003 with heating oil tanks being removed, and then both in 2003 and then in 2012 there was soil and groundwater sampling conducted, and in 2012 there was also soil vapor sampling. What soil vapor sampling is collecting samples of the air that's below the ground surface. And the findings were that there was some localized areas of contamination, which included solvents, which would be like cleaning solutions, petroleum, and some metals. The metals were predominantly lead and a little bit of cadmium. But there was some gaps in the sampling data. Not everything was completely figured out at the time, and so some additional assessment was needed.
May I interrupt you here?
Yes.
I believe the last report we got was before the gaps were noticed. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
Because we thought we had it all tested and we were ready to move on to the soil removal and that kind of thing. But since then, the report was submitted to DEQ and came back and said we don't have all the information, there are gaps. Is that correct?
That is correct. In the next couple of slides, I'll try to.
Because we're just wondering why we thought
out.
we were in the next phase, but we're back at this thing.
Almost there. Close to the finish line, not quite. So the recent investigation was 2014. It involved 13 borings across the site. You can see the areas dashed in red. Included 13 soil samples and 10 groundwater samples, and then composite samples of the 2 stockpiles in the former Safeway basement footprint, and then the stockpile that's underneath the raised parking deck. Next. So the findings of the recent work from last summer was that there was widespread but low-level impact to soil from petroleum, PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, and metals. Again, it was the cadmium lead. There was some partially defined areas of higher lead and pH levels beneath the parking deck, pHs being polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons. And it was determined that the stockpiled soils were not ideal for reuse on site due to some of the constituents that were in them. For groundwater, there was some low-level chlorinated solvent and metals detected beneath the Heritage Square site in Wayne Street. We used a model, it's called BioChlor, and it was used to calculate how quickly and how far the chlorinated solvents in groundwater might move and migrate. And therein is where one of the hiccups came, was that the model showed that it might actually make it off-site towards the Columbia River, and so DEQ is requiring a little bit more work on that, as well as the second bullet, that only partially defined area underneath the parking deck. The important takeaway here, the concentrations do not pose a risk to urban residential, occupational, or park users, so long as the site's developed at street level. So really, anything that we're talking about is 13 feet below street grade and in the groundwater.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So it says developed at street level. Some of the plans included a sunken amphitheater where the soil was deposited. Now, would that be precluded by these findings?
Probably not. And one of the reasons that I'll get to on the next slide, some of the additional sampling, is because some of the changes in proposed end use, if you will. So rather than it being cut and dried that it was going to be commercial, now there's a possibility of urban residential. Some of that is requires some additional testing. Next. So just a